Everybody, and Merry Christmas. Welcome back to another Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the final release of the Torchwood main range of 2020, which is of course The Crown, as written by Jonathan Barnes, not to be confused with the highly popular original Netflix TV series starring Claire Foy and Olivia Colman as Queen Elizabeth herself. This time round we have a Torchwood story with the Torchwood variation of Queen Victoria as portrayed by Rowena Cooper, who's previously seen two whole adventures as a part of the main range so far, as well as Victorian Age, starring alongside John Barrowman as Captain Jack Harkness. This release is available to be ordered now on the Big Finish website. The physical CD is £10.99 and the download is £8.99. There's also additional story details, as well as a trailer that you can of course listen to. Now, the beauty of this story is of course naturally the timing, and I'm assuming that Big Finish has entirely planned this, but of course this story for the final release of this year is in fact entirely set on Christmas Eve, which hopefully, if I edit on time, this review will indeed be going out on Christmas Eve. So it's another really lovely, wintry, gloomy adventure set around the festive period, which if you are a fan of gloomy, wintry adventures, also check out my Big Finish audio drama review for The Grey Man of the Mountains, starring Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, which also went out rather recently, which is also an episode set around the festive time. Now, it is in fact really lovely to be able to take a look at The Crown as a story, because as I have already mentioned, Rowena Cooper has starred already within a number of Torchwood main range stories as Queen Victoria herself, as well as featuring alongside Jago and Lightfoot within Jago and Lightfoot Forever. I've never been able to review any of the Torchwood Victorian stories simply because of timing. For some reason, it has been a very big coincidence with both Fortitude and Save Our Souls, when on the release of those audio dramas I found myself really busy. I do believe I did in fact review Save Our Souls, however I then lost the footage, meaning that review was never published and I wasn't able to go back and refilm it because I didn't really have too much time. So it's really lovely to be able to in fact finally sit down and take a look at a Victorian Torchwood story after already previously really enjoying Torchwood Soho earlier on this year. It's great to have a story once again set within the early days of Torchwood, or at least a historical variation of Torchwood, which admittedly does things very different to that of modern day Torchwood. So taking a look at the production credits on the Big Finish website, the senior producer is David Richardson, the theme tune is Ben Foster, the cover art has been rather excellently created by Lee Binding, the director is Lisa Bauman, the producer is James Goss, the script editor is David Llewellyn, the sound design and music is John Miners, as was the theme tune being composed by Murray Gold, and this episode is written by Jonathan Barnes, with the executive producers being Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haig-Ellery. Now, as always with the cast of Torchwood stories, we have a very small cast for this one. So we have Rowena Cooper as Queen Victoria, we have Jonathan Bladen as Maddox, then we have Gwyneth Keyworth as Mrs. Henrietta Parr, as well as Derek Riddle as Dr. Gideon Parr. Of course, due to us finally coming to the end of 2020, after it being a rather challenging year for many, it does also mean that it has now been over a year since I started to review the Torchwood main range stories on this channel, with the exception of a few releases here and there, depending on when I have been busy. However, I've also gone back and listened to a number of the previous releases, as well as expanding out into the other Torchwood series, the likes of Aliens Among Us, as well as Torchwood Soho Parasite, Torchwood 1, and a number of other releases in there as well. Now, something that I've noticed with the Torchwood main range in particular is that it's one of those series I think is very good, especially that now we are over, I think, 45 releases into the line, where you can cherry pick stories that simply appeal to you. I do believe that there is a number of releases within the early section of the line that did have a few plot threads here and there that did link the stories together. However, for the most part, especially with these later stories as a part of the range, you simply can pick episodes that appeal to you, possibly characters that you really like, or simply story synopsis details that you really think you would enjoy listening to, and the story intrigues you overall. I think that the joy of that is that Torchwood expands across many different varied characters and many different eras. Victorian Torchwood stories are a very good example of that. I think that if you are a fan of Aliens Among Us and Torchwood 1, and perhaps you aren't a fan of historical stories, then you won't exactly get the same enjoyment out of episodes the likes of this compared to Aliens Among Us and some of the more modern Torchwood stories, as even though I've not reviewed Fortitude and Save Our Souls, the entire style of Queen Victoria's stories are very different in design compared to some of the other episodes that we've seen so far. One of the main things that at least I think as a listener that links all of the Queen Victoria stories together is that concept of isolation, which is very, very, very relevant living in 2020 at the minute, and we are all very used to isolation. However, there's something that takes the Queen Victoria stories to another level when it comes to isolation, because we had Fortitude, which was set on a rather unusual sea base in the middle of the ocean, and they had this rather unusual paranormal thing going on. Then we have Save Our Souls, which again was kind of set at sea. This time round, however, on an island, and of course we have a lighthouse, and basically it's a bit of a murder mystery, again a paranormal aspect in that story. And then we have this episode, which is The Crown, and again the isolation aspect comes in because Queen Victoria has been going a little bit insane over the past few months, and as a result she has submitted herself to a local asylum because she is starting to believe that things are going wrong and she's not being treated how she once was, of course being the main monarch of England and the British Empire at that point, and she's a person who is very much used to getting all the attention. She's used to everybody's head turning within the room as she enters, of course, because she's the Queen of England and that is courtesy. However, what happens when that is taken away? What happens when these people forget she even exists? What happens when she has a conversation with someone and they act entirely absent, not wanting to be there, and she is not the powerful member of England that she once was? And this story focuses on that. It focuses on this unknown power that is kind of ruining the reputation of Queen Victoria, but not only that, almost taking her out of history entirely. And as a result, we have one of the asylum workers, being Maddox, basically employing the skills of Dr. Gideon Parr in order to find out what is wrong with the Queen of England, because of course at this point within history they're not exactly sure that she is indeed the Queen of England. Of course, they can't just do a simple Google search because this is the late 1800s, and as a result we have this whole concept of identity and vulnerability with this character, which admittedly within previous Queen stories has been very powerful and the lead of all of the scenes. This story is very, very different. To admit, I'm not one for historical texts. I got enough of that within English literature, and I think that had I had more time on my hands, I would no doubt want to go back and kind of read about all of these exciting books and novels that have without a doubt inspired modern media today, because it is very difficult to write something without references to other media, and this story is very clear that it is inspired of the likes of Victorian writers. In particular, Jonathan Barnes within the behind the scenes references a writer or academic from the late 1800s being M.R. James, and basically he used to write these ghost paranormal stories that he would read to his students around the festive period. Something lovely about Christmas and Victorian times. Of course, Charles Dickens. Very recently I have in fact watched a number of Christmas specials from Doctor Who, and one of the ones I always go to without fail that isn't in fact a Christmas special, it is The Unquiet Dead, and I posted something on Twitter about that story because it's one of my personal favourite Doctor Who Christmas stories of all time, because yes, it is set at Christmas and it is undeniably Doctor Who does kind of a Christmas Carol with the actual Charles Dickens. The whole concept of that episode isn't underpinned by the festive, almost cheesiness of some of the more recent Christmas specials. It's a story that is very serious, it has a ghostly aspect behind it, and that is what we also see within The Crown as well. We have this mysterious darkness lurking underneath this story with the whole concept of the ferryman who has basically been dug out of this old ancient text, and he has the power to ruin people's authority and ruin people's power, which when you apply that to somebody the likes of Queen Victoria, naturally that is going to have quite a large effect. And the way Rowena Cooper acts it, because for the vast majority of this episode, in a way, it is very much a monologue. You can imagine these two people sat within this rather cold asylum cell. You have Dr. Gideon Parr at one edge taking notes, and then of course the Queen of England at the other, recounting the last few months of her life and basically saying how she believes she has came to this moment where all of the power seems to be slipping away from her fingertips. Rowena Cooper does a very good job of carrying the story forward. It's very mysterious, it's captivating. However, again, I reiterate the fact that I mentioned earlier on within this review, I feel like it will not be a format that everybody will enjoy, because it's not exactly an action-packed episode. It is a very slow-burning story that is pretty much a two-hander, with Maddox coming in every so often to kind of interrupt the episode, and and to kind of bring you back into the moment that you are within an asylum. And instantly, as soon as that story is kind of taken away, you get this underlying coldness to the episode. It's all very clinical, there's nothing going on, it's pretty silent, it's echoing. As a result, it makes the tale that the Queen is saying the central focus of the story, and if you are intrigued, then you are definitely sucked into the narrative overall. I do also think that it kind of follows a traditional Christmas tale when you have two people sat around the fire and basically someone reeling off a ghostly story from around the period. You can kind of imagine the Queen reeling off a Charles Dickens at this point, sort of talking about A Christmas Carol, and I even started to imagine the cell window and kind of snow drifting down on this rather murky Christmas Eve. Everything about this episode is very satisfyingly atmospheric, which again is a compliment that I extend to quite a lot of the Torchwood main range audio drama releases, because they set the scene almost perfectly each and every time. And as always with this review, I'm going to leave a number of questions. Does the ferryman actually exist? What is Torchwood's involvement within this story? And how is Queen Victoria going to get her power back? It's one of those episodes that is very easy to follow, and I think that the overall Torchwood undercurrent of this story isn't really the main focus. Normally we get used to Torchwood stories with them being drafted in, they need to sort out this alien force that has came through the rift or something like that. These early Torchwood stories are dealing with that unknown. You have a Torchwood team that don't quite know what they are doing. They don't quite know if aliens exist yet, and they believe that everything is from another dimension. If you like that kind of theme, I think that episodes like Save Our Souls is most certainly one that will be up your street as well, because that deals with the whole concept of Ouija boards and kind of talking to people from beyond the grave. It's all very creepy, so I imagine that if you like the previous Victorian stories, you'll most certainly like this one, and if you want an eerie Christmas episode to brighten up your Christmas Eve, then again, this is certainly an episode that is worth purchasing. So there we go, that is that for the Torchwood main range of 2020. I haven't in fact taken a look at the previous release as a part of this series, which is Rhys and Yanto's Excellent Barbecue, as written by Tim Foley. Again, I've listened to that one, however I think I'm going to need to go back and re-listen to it again, because I wasn't able to review it last month due to several uni commitments dragging me down, but hopefully I would like to review that story in the future, because it does in fact raise a lot of lovely key questions and character developments, and as always, Tim Foley writes excellently, so I would like to return to that story in the future, hopefully over the next few weeks. However, for now, that is it for the Torchwood main range of this year. I really hope you have enjoyed this review, and do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for brand new Doctor Who content each and every week, from audio dramas, action figure reviews, merchandise reviews, and much, much more. And of course, on that note, Merry Christmas, have a lovely Christmas Eve, and I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.